Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive? Today, we're going deep into the world of Warren Jeffs.
Warren Jeffs and the FLDS.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Of course. Can't forget the FLDS, the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
A group that's, well, let's just say they've had their share of controversy.
Definitely. And that's kind of what we're going to be, digging into today.
Exactly.
We'll be looking at two main sources, by the way.
Okay.
There's this academic thesis that really breaks down Jeff's impact on the FLDS.
I'm familiar with that one. Really in-depth analysis.
It is. And then we've got this recent news article about, well, Jeff's former home.
Oh, what about it?
Get this, it's been turned into a sober living center.
Wow, that's quite the transformation. Talk about a change of scenery.
Right. So what we really want to understand today is, how did Jeffs shape the FLDS? What made him so controversial? And what happened to the community after, well, everything went down?
Big questions, but important ones for sure.
Yeah. We'll even touch on whether a community like this can ever really heal after something so traumatic.
Right.
But, okay, let's back up a bit. Let's start with Warren Jeffs himself. His upbringing was, I guess you could say, unique.
Unique, that's putting it mildly. Grew up with over 50 wives and dozens of siblings.
It's hard to even imagine, right? I mean, how does that kind of environment shape a person?
You know, it's certainly worth considering, right? I mean, and this isn't your average family dynamic.
Not at all. And it was all rooted in the FLDS belief in polygamy.
Right, polygamy, having multiple wives, it's what really separates them from mainstream Mormonism.
It makes you wonder, like, did growing up like that influence Jeff's own need for control later on?
It's a theory that's been floated. I mean, you can't ignore that context.
Definitely not. And when Jeffs did take over the FLDS, it wasn't just about leading.
No, it was about control.
Complete control. Finances, businesses, everything went through him.
He had a very specific strategy for consolidating power.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, for one, he demanded ownership of businesses, centralized all the finances under his control.
So nobody could make a move without him knowing.
And if you even thought about questioning his authority,
You were out.
gone, excommunicated.
There's this one incident, pretty shocking actually. Jeffs expelled 21 men, just like that.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about that.
And then reassigned their wives and children to his followers.
It's hard to fathom the level of control, the fear he instilled in people.
It really is. And it makes you think about why this whole story, why it resonated with so many people outside the FLDS.
Oh, for sure. It became a cultural phenomenon in a way.
Like, remember that HBO show, Big Love?
Yeah. Based on Jeffs and the FLDS, pretty much.
It's like Jeffs and the whole FLDS thing. It really brought polygamy into the public eye.
Gave people a glimpse into this, secretive world, made them question, well, all sorts of things. Freedom, societal norms, what happens in closed communities.
It was like suddenly everyone was talking about polygamy.
And not always in the most sensitive way. I mean, there's a danger in sensationalizing something like this, right?
Right.
You can lose sight of the real human impact.
Absolutely. But okay, let's shift gears for a sec. Let's talk about the Yearning for Zion Ranch.
My ranch in Texas.
Yeah, the one where, like, hundreds of FLDS members lived under Jeff's rule. It was like his own little kingdom.
And this is where we see some of the most tragic consequences of his leadership.
Go on.
The lost boys, teenage boys, expelled for the smallest things.
Really? Like what kind of things?
Watching TV, talking to a girl, anything Jeff saw as a violation.
And then what? What happened to them?
Nowhere to go. Some ended up homeless. Others caught up in the criminal justice system.
It's heartbreaking. And then there's the underage marriages.
Yeah.
Which, that's what ultimately took Jeff's down.
Yeah. It's disturbing. The average marriage age in the FLDS was actually going up before Jeff's.
Yeah.
But he reversed that trend, pushed for girls to marry younger and younger.
And that's what led to his arrest.
Ultimately, yeah. Convicted for sexual assault of a minor.
It's hard to wrap your head around it all.
It is.
But what I find fascinating is, Jeff's home, the big house. 44 bedrooms, by the way.
Wow.
It's been turned into a sober living center run by missionaries.
Oh, wow. That's almost poetic, isn't it? A place of control and darkness turned into a place of healing.
It really is. And it kind of makes you think, right, can a community like the FLDS ever truly heal after all that?
That's the big question. And to understand that, we need to dig into their belief system a little more.
Yeah, let's see that.
Specifically, this idea of fundamentalism, how it's different from, mainstream Mormonism.
Sounds like a good place to start.
Let's get into it. So fundamentalism.
Yeah, where do we even start with that?
Well, it's not just an FLDS thing. You see it. You see fundamentalism in all sorts of religions, and it basically comes down to, believing in the absolute literal truth of sacred texts. And often there's this desire to separate from the outside world. Like they see it as corrupt or whatever.
Right. So like with the FLDS,
exactly,
they held on to certain practices like polygamy.
Yeah.
That mainstream Mormonism had, already moved away from.
Right. It was like they saw themselves as the true keepers of the original Mormon teachings.
Interesting.
They believed that these practices like polygamy were essential for salvation.
It's wild how like one interpretation can lead to such a different path.
It really shows you how interpretations of faith, they can evolve, they can split off.
Yeah.
Even within groups that share the same like origin story.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it makes you think about how Jeff's used this whole belief system to basically just solidify his own power.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if your followers believe you're God's prophet,
right,
then disobeying you is like,
it's like disobeying God.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Jeff's was very, very smart about using that belief, in prophetic authority to get people to follow his rules, even when those rules got stricter and stricter.
It's scary how effective that can be.
It is.
But switching gears a little bit.
Okay.
The article about Jeff's former home.
Yeah.
It mentioned this thing about the historical connection.
Oh, right.
Between the FLDS and the mainstream Mormon church.
Yeah, that's important context.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
Well, polygamy wasn't always it wasn't always a separating factor. It used to be practiced by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
The mainstream Mormons.
Yeah, up until the late 1800s, actually.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
It wasn't until 1890 that they officially said, nope, not doing polygamy anymore.
Huh. So they share, like, a common ancestor.
In a way, yeah, but they've really diverged.
Yeah, especially on that whole polygamy issue.
It's like a family feud.
Yeah.
But with really, really high stakes.
That's a good way to put it. But, okay, so back to the FLDS.
All right.
What happens now? I mean, with Jeff's in prison,
right?
His actions exposed. Can this community even survive?
That's the big question, right?
It is.
They've been through so much internal divisions,
right?
Legal battles, just a complete loss of trust.
It's a lot.
Yeah. Some members of they've left, trying to find a new life, a new start outside.
Sure.
But then there are those who stayed, and they're trying to figure out how to move forward.
Yeah, how do you even begin to do that?
It's not a simple answer.
Why?
Some FLDS communities, they're actively trying to reform.
Okay.
Moving away from Jeff's teachings, trying to rebuild that trust.
Yeah.
It's a long road, though.
Yeah, it has to be.
There's no easy fix for this kind of trauma.
Right. But at least there are people trying to help, right?
Yeah. There are individuals and organizations who are really dedicated to supporting, former FLDS members.
That's good to hear.
Offering counseling, education, just resources to help them, rebuild their lives.
I'm glad that exists.
Me too.
But I keep coming back to this question of can a community so rooted in these rigid beliefs, can they truly change?
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
It makes you think about, how do you reform any system that's been corrupted by power?
Right.
By dogma.
Yeah. It's bigger than just the FLDS.
It is.
It's about human nature.
Yeah, it's about our capacity for both good and bad. Blind faith versus,
versus critical thinking.
Yeah.
So much to unpack there.
There is.
So, okay, for our listener,
yeah,
what are the key takeaways here? What can we learn from this?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's a reminder that power, especially when it's mixed with religious belief, needs to be watched. carefully.
We can't just blindly trust.
Right. Blind faith can be dangerous.
Yeah.
Because it can blind you to abuse, to manipulation.
We have to question things.
We do. We have to challenge authority and be wary of anyone who says they have all the answers.
Nobody has all the answer.
No one.
What else? What else should our listener keep in mind?
Well, this whole story really highlights how important critical thinking is. You know, being willing to look at things from different angles.
Right.
Don't be afraid to question your own beliefs, you know?
Yeah, question everything.
Exactly. And talk to people who have different views. Respectfully, of course.
Of course.
And lastly,
and this is important.
Yeah.
Even when things seem really, really dark, there's always potential for healing, for growth.
there's always hope.
There is.
I like that.
It's a testament to human resilience, you know,
Absolutely.
And to the power of hope.
That's a good place to leave it for now.
Yeah, I think so.
But we're not done yet, right?
Not quite.
We've got one more part to go.
We do. We'll wrap things up. Talk about the legacy
Yeah.
of Warren Jeffs and the FLDS.
And what it all means for the rest of us.
That's right.
So stick around. Well, here we are, part 3 of our deep dive into Warren Jeffs and the FLDS.
It's been quite a journey from, you know, his rise to power to the whole belief system and, of course, the devastating impact of his actions.
Yeah. It's a lot to process. And it makes you think, you know, like, could something like this happen anywhere?
It's a disturbing thought, but honestly, yeah, I think it could. Anywhere that blind faith takes over, anywhere people stop thinking for themselves.
Right. It's like a cautionary tale for all of us.
Exactly. We can't just sit back and assume it can't happen to us or in our communities.
So for our listeners, for everyone who's been following along with us on this deep dive, what's the one thing you really want them to take away from all of this?
I'd say this. Never stop questioning. Never stop thinking critically, especially when it comes to beliefs, to ideologies, the ones that claim to have all the answers.
Because that's when things get dangerous, right?
Exactly. When we accept things without questioning, without thinking for ourselves, that's when we become vulnerable.
It's a manipulation.
To abuse. Yeah. We have to remember learning, understanding. It's a process, a lifelong process.
It's not about having all the answers. It's about being open to new information, to different perspectives.
And to asking questions.
Ah.
Always asking questions.
So to our listeners, keep digging, keep learning, and keep pushing for a world where stories like this become less and less common.
That's the goal, isn't it? To learn from the past, to build a better future.
It is. And if anyone out there needs support, you know, if you've been affected by a cult or an extremist group, please reach out. There are resources available to help.
We'll be sure to include some links in the show notes so you can find those resources easily.
This deep dive has been, well, it's been heavy.
It has, but it's been important.
Yeah. It's a story that makes you think about humanity, about the good, the bad, and everything in between.
And it reminds us that even in the darkest of times, there's always hope. Hope for healing, hope for change, hope for a better future.
That's a good note to end on.
I think so too.
Thanks for joining us on this journey, everyone. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep the conversation going.